All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. We're going to be talking about summer hunger in Tennessee, the existing support, and the program gaps. A quick introduction of a few folks that are on the call. For starters, my name is Anna Grace. I work as an anti-hunger policy coordinator here at the Tennessee Justice Center, and I'll be presenting today. I'll pass it to you, Claire.
And I'm Clara. I'm the anti-hunger advocacy intern this summer, and I'll be talking a little bit about summer hunger and how that impacts Tennesseans.
Lily, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Lily, I'm the child anti-hunger advocate at TJC. I work primarily on our school meals advocacy and am also doing some summer EBT work along with Anna Grace.
Fabulous. Okay, we've got several other members of our team on the call, and so if you have questions throughout, feel free to ask, and one of us would be able to answer. A quick overview of what we're going to be talking about. For those of you that are less familiar with TJC, we'll give a brief introduction into our work. And then we'll pass the torch to Clara, and she'll give us an overview of summer hunger, some stats in Tennessee, and programs that exist to alleviate summer hunger. Then we'll pass it to our dear partner Tammy at the Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee to talk about the summer food service program and the sites that they have in Middle Tennessee. We'll do a brief Summer EBT 101 and talk about the advocacy campaign that we're running. Then to finish up the call, we'll talk about ways to be engaged and a few upcoming events. So thanks for joining us. There's still a few people trickling in through the waiting room, but just for those that are on the call, if you have questions throughout this, there's no reason that you can't interrupt us mid-sentence. Please do so. So if you've got a question, raise your hand, come off mute, put it in the chat, and we'll be able to answer it. But for starters, the Tennessee Justice Center is about 28, going on 29 years old. And we've been standing with vulnerable Tennesseans, trying to help them meet their basic needs for all of those years. And so we do individual casework and use that casework to help leverage the knowledge that we learn of how the safety net programs actually operate in Tennessee. And then we work to move systems across the state. So we provide direct program assistance with several programs, SNAP, WIC, Summer EBT is listed here. We used to provide direct casework, but as you'll learn later on in the call, that's a program that Tennessee's not currently opted into, but we're doing lots of advocacy around it. And then specific to TennCare, we have client advocates that can help individuals that are encountering barriers or need additional support connecting to cover kits or choices. And if you yourself or you have a client or friend that could benefit from any of TJC's resources or client services, feel free to check out our tools and trainings page, or you can fill out the inquiry form below to get help. So TJC sometimes is most often known for our work on the health team and with Medicaid or TennCare in Tennessee, but we also have a small but mighty anti-hunger team. And so on this team, we work to end hunger in Tennessee by protecting and strengthening the federal nutrition safety net programs. So that most often includes SNAP, WIC, and then child nutrition programs. For instance, Summer EBT, like I mentioned, and then Lily on the call, as she mentioned, works specifically with school meals. So we work much like the model of TJC as a whole directly with clients who are encountering barriers, accessing or using these programs. And then we, according to their experiences, advocate, educate, inform our partners to help the programs work better. And so we are constantly advocating for solutions to systemic issues that we identify through working directly with individuals accessing these programs. Okay, I will now pass it over to you, Claire.
All right. Hello, everyone. To sort of get the groundwork laid for what summer hunger looks like in Tennessee, I want to take a minute and talk about what food insecurity in general looks like in Tennessee, especially among children. So every year, Feeding America does their Map the Meal Gap study, and in 2024, they determined that 15.6% of Tennesseans are food insecure. And among those, only 45% are currently eligible for SNAP. So that means that 55% of our food insecure Tennesseans are not receiving federal benefits from SNAP. And this impacts families, this impacts children. In fact, over 40% of families with children reported being food insecure in 2024, according to the Vanderbilt Child Health Poll. And this poll also revealed somewhat concerning data that 71% of families are altering their food spending habits because of changing food prices. And when that happens, it is, of course, like our most vulnerable, our most food insecure that are most impacted by that. Even if a household is not technically considered food insecure or below the federal poverty level, they still may experience difficulty affording food. Those who are above the federal poverty level but still experience financial hardship are considered ALICE, or asset limited income constrained employed. And though only 14% of Tennesseans are below the federal poverty level, 44% of households in Tennessee experience financial hardship and still experience budgetary challenges affording basic necessities such as food. And this is more challenging during summer break. There's a variety of reasons for that, but most significant is no school means no school lunch. In the 2023-2024 school year, about 21 million children nationwide relied on the National School Lunch and School Breakfast programs. And so that's 2 meals a day that those students would ordinarily receive at school that they are not receiving, which can be really challenging, especially if those are free and reduced price meals. That's an additional like budgetary strain that is added during the summer that does not exist during the year. And to add to that, parents are also responsible for childcare during the summer. So that might mean foregoing work or having to pay for expensive childcare, which if there's already strain in trying to provide 2 more meals, that's additional on top of that. Not only that, but extreme heat imposes higher energy costs, and extreme heat also makes transportation more difficult. And already lacking transportation can prevent families from accessing the community resources that do exist, which once again is escalated during the summer for a variety of reasons. And this has really significant impacts. We know that this impacts children. Research time and time again has demonstrated the impact on physical health. People who experience food insecurity in childhood are more likely to develop chronic illnesses or have like cardiovascular illness. This also impacts mental health, behavioral health, cognitive development, and all of this combines to impact educational performance and can widen the attainment gap. And specifically in the summer, there's a phenomenon known as summer slide, which all children experience. It's the learning loss that happens when you are out of school for a while. But this is more detrimental for children who are hungry. And it is more difficult to overcome that summer slide when children's bellies aren't full. On top of that, it's not just children. As we know, caregivers and parents are particularly impacted by food insecurity as well, particularly if it is also impacting their children. A lot of caregivers and parents report having to eat less to make sure their children are fed, and also the having to figure out where meals are coming from or where transportation or where they can eat can contribute to stress, anxiety, and depression, and just make things even more challenging. So luckily in Tennessee, we do have some programs that are available. We have the Summer Food Service Program, which provides meals to any school-age child in low-income areas. What's notable about that is that any child can participate as long as they are in that area, which means even children that might not qualify for free and reduced school meals, such as those who might fall in that ALICE category, are able to benefit from that, which is really wonderful. And how this program looks is there are meal sites that are approved by the Department of Human Services in the state of Tennessee. And at these approved meal sites, children can go and have a congregate meal with other children and enjoy programming that is offered. And in rural areas, they also offer some meals to go, which might ease some of the transportation barriers that exist when those distances become prohibitive. There's also the Summer Seamless option, which, just to go back and clarify, the Summer Food Service Program can be administered by any community service. So that can be YMCAs, that can be schools. There are a variety of sites that can apply for that. The summer seamless option, on the other hand, is specifically administered by the Department of Education, and is a streamlined approach that is only for schools that are participating already in the National School Lunch and School Breakfast programs. So that means it's less paperwork for them, and they already often have the facilities to accommodate that. So like SFSP, this provides meals to any school-age child in low-income areas. And when there is a particular program where 50% are eligible for free and reduced price meals, that those children can also receive, or can also, that site can also be a part of the summer seamless option. And as I mentioned, this is administered by the Department of Education, which means it is administered by a different program than SFSP, which makes things complicated and challenging to figure out and navigate for these programs.
Fabulous.
All right, so those programs are complicated, they provide a lot, they do a lot of great work, but they are exceedingly limited. The first most significant barrier is location. As I mentioned, a lot of these sites are only located in areas that are designated to serve low-income individuals and families, which means that they are limited in their location, and distances may be prohibitive for certain people. And in a state where 93% of our counties are considered rural, that can make things really complicated. And making things even more challenging is the fact that transportation can be exceedingly limited. Unlike going to the grocery store once a week, these meals must be consumed on site, or once again in rural areas, they can be picked up to go, but that still means going to that site once a day. And you might be in a location where you have meals, you might have a site near you, but you might not be able to have access to transportation to obtain that. So that can be an additional barrier. And then on top of that, one of the barriers I listed is choice. And choice is kind of an umbrella term, because a lot of times being able to choose and select what you eat is not a choice. A lot of children obviously have specific dietary needs, which are challenging to accommodate. They can be accommodated with a physician's letter in a lot of these programs, but that's an additional barrier that families have to go through, and that's an additional barrier for the sites to accommodate. And on top of that, not all dietary needs, as we know, are medical, so that can be even more challenging to accommodate for those families and for those sites. All right, and as we know, I think we're in a heat advisory today, so extreme heat is definitely a huge challenge in Tennessee, particularly when there's already transportation challenges. And it can become prohibitive or burdensome for families to be able to get to those meal sites. And on the administrative side of things, the individual sites are responsible for staffing those, and for having the facilities for meal preparation and storage. And there's lots of challenge to get paperwork submitted and to be able to be approved to host a site. And on top of that, this program, especially SFSP, is seasonal, so bureaucracy can be dismantled and recreated on kind of a cyclical basis, which makes those already burdensome aspects of having to staff and submit paperwork even more challenging. So that is all I have for you all, but thank you all so much.
Fabulous, Clara. Okay, well, so Clara gave us a great introduction into summer hunger and briefly touched on the differences between the summer food service program, what we often call SFSP, and then the seamless summer option, SSO. But we've got an in-house expert that we're going to pass it to for a minute. Tammy Dieter is the Senior Manager of Government Relations and Programs at Second Harvest Food Bank of Middle Tennessee, and she's going to talk briefly about SFSP and the sites that Second Harvest administers here in Middle Tennessee. So I'll pass it to you, Tammy.
Thank you. Very excited to tell you all about this. So to be an SFSP site, you do have to have what's called a program sponsor. And there are a lot of program sponsors across the state, and Second Harvest Middle Tennessee has been a sponsoring organization for many years. I'm not even sure how many, longer than I've been at the food bank for sure. And this summer we were able to sponsor 10 sites across our 46 county service area. So we were able to reach out into Bedford, Davidson, Humphreys, Marshall, Murray, Perry, and Sumner counties this year, which was an expansion much larger than we usually get to cover out into our rural counties, which was a real effort we put in this year. And with that, you all kind of touched on this in the previous slide. Sites have the choice of being congregate or non-congregate. With congregate sites, they do have to have the kids present each day and consume that meal on site. And then the non-congregate is the grab and go. So we were evenly split between those two. Non-congregate can only be in rural areas. So obviously our Davidson County sites are where our congregate meals are served, and the other counties are non-congregate. We're kind of unique in that we're able to offer shelf-stable, thaw and serve, and frozen meals. We have a social enterprise here at our food bank where we put together what we call tray packs, which look very much like a TV dinner. So it's a frozen meal that meets the nutrition guidelines of this program. So there's so much protein, fruit and vegetable. Every meal, no matter what kind it is served with a milk. All our milk is shelf-stable to accommodate what our different sites are able to store. So different options. Our thaw and serve are the much loved Uncrustables, the PBJs, along with fruits and vegetables. And so it just gives some different options for our partners on what they're able to offer the kids to meet the different nutritional needs and different taste buds basically of the kids. You know, kids are notoriously picky, so we try to give them some different options. We are a little bit different than a lot of our sponsors, our other sponsors, and that we're dependent on local organizations to conduct that meal service and distribution. So we get the meals together, whether it's frozen, thaw and serve, or shelf stable. We have our volunteer services packs those boxes for the non-congregate sites, and they pick up once a week at each of our non-congregates, and there's 7 lunches and 7 milks in each of those boxes, whether it's thaw and serve, frozen, or shelf stable. So we have an amazing group of volunteers at the food bank who builds those each season so that those can go out to our non-congregate sites. A lot of other sponsors may do that on their own, like they have a truck and they travel to the different sites and are completely overseeing it. But we partner with organizations in those communities that are willing to do that distribution for us. We provide the food and get the food to them. And I already mentioned the non-congregates are packed by our warehouse volunteer shifts. So with that, we have already served over 20,000 meals this summer, which is just amazing to me. It's been such an increase by adding those rural counties. And like I said, they get 7 days of meals at once. And, you know, especially like Humphreys County and Marshall, they did not have someone providing this program previously. And so we see just a huge impact. In Marshall County, those meals are served through the library system there. Oh, yeah, Bedford too, right, Marissa? The library is our sponsor in Marshall County. In Bedford, there's a soup kitchen there. So that's a really, really unique partnership in that our box meals are lunches, and then but the family coming to pick up those boxes for the 7 days of lunches also has the opportunity to stay and have a hot meal while they're there because it is a soup kitchen and they plan their distribution time for their serving time. So real fun, great partnership going on in Bedford. And then Perry County is our unique one, and they serve 2 to 250 kids a week, drive-through style for their families, but they have a large commercial freezer. So they are our only non-congregate site that alternates. So one week they will hand out a box of 7 shelf-stable meals and milks, and then the next week it's a box of 7 of those frozen meals, and then a separate bag of 7 milks so that the family gets more variety. Each box has 7 different meals, but they do alternate that frozen and that shelf stable week to week for those families there. So it's just been tremendously successful and tremendously exciting. I know it's really hard for families to have access during the summer, and it's so exciting to see these families come in because I've visited all of these sites multiple times and been there during distribution to see these families come through and just talk about what a difference it makes just having these meals on hand for the whole week for their families to be able to access that, especially in the rural counties where, like you said, transportation is an issue. There's not a lot of programming going on in some of these smaller rural counties. So it does make a huge difference for the summer. And I will throw out just one kind of side note, which I know is something you're about to talk about. At my Bedford County site, the first day they distributed, I was there, and there was a family who regularly visits the soup kitchen, and the woman, she was there with her 7 kids, but she had not signed up to receive these SFSP boxes. And so, the folks at our site knew the family, and they were like, "Why didn't you sign up? Please come get these boxes for your family." And she said, "I really just found out today that we're not getting summer EBT. And I was going to leave the boxes for other families to get because I was going to be covered by summer EBT." And so that just struck me just how impactful, not only how giving the families are and considerate of each other, but also that she was already relying on that money to come in for her family that she was not yet aware was not going to come until that day. But also thankful that we were there to provide those boxes for her family to help them get through the summer. So every summer program plays a part. They get 1 box per kid, yes, and each box has the 7 meals. Yes, Julia. So yeah, happy to play a part in this and just knowing how all these programs kind of intertwine with each other to get families through the summer while they're away from school and don't have access to those meals.
Thanks, Tammy. Your work is obviously really impressive and important, and Marissa is hyping you up in the chat, and we could have had her speak too. And she has just as much knowledge. So, anyways, before we move on, I just want to pause momentarily and see if there are any questions on the call. Oh, there we go. Ask and you shall receive. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey Tammy. It's good to see you on this call. I had a question about the meals. So you mentioned that you have shelf stable, thaw and serve, and frozen. Are they all similar food items? And do they need to be heated before eating, or are they ready to go?
So our shelf stable is almost what someone might call a heavy snack. So each meal is a bag that's already packed, and then there's 7 of those bags within the box. And they will have things like squeezed applesauce, sunflower seeds, beef jerky, whole grain tortillas, and maybe peanut butter pouch to squeeze onto it. There's always a whole grain in there. So sometimes, like we have a nacho kit and it's whole grain corn chips and salsa or nacho cheese, or it might have both. So things like that. And then a shelf-stable milk. The thaw and serve is always going to be a sandwich with a vegetable. Typically, it is like baby carrots and broccoli with a side of ranch. So things that have to be refrigerated but not heated. And then our frozen meals have to stay frozen and they do have to be heated, but they are microwavable. And that is things like, I think there's a spaghetti, there's a chicken burrito, there's like a Salisbury steak. We tried to pick out things that the kids might be familiar with that they would like to eat, but it is dependent on, we had a question about this, about having electricity. So the families know in that county, in Perry County, which weeks are shelf stable and which are frozen. So if electricity or even freezer space is a concern for that family, they know that they can alternate. And usually the site has extra shelf stable on hand. So if they need to substitute, they're free to do that too for those families that need it. The other sites, most of the frozen meals go to our congregate sites, and those sites heat those meals and then serve them to the kids that day.
Great. Thanks for answering that. As somebody who's toured your facilities and seen that awesome kitchen y'all have, I think this is a really
Oh,
cool program. So
yes,
great.
it's pretty amazing.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, any other questions before we move on? Julia, go right ahead. I see you raised your hand.
Hi, I'm from Congressman Cohen's office, and it's great to hear about this work. I was just wondering, why do y'all have congregate sites specifically where people like have to eat that food there?
So that is in federal law that if you are not in a rural area, this food has to be consumed on site each day. Now, not all of our congregate sites operate every day of the week, so it may just be they're only available some of those days. And it used to be that no matter where you were, the law said that you had to consume those meals on site each day. So within the last 2 years, that flexibility came through from the USDA to allow those non-congregate sites and then pick up for weekly distribution, but it is limited to rural.
Thanks, Tammy and Julia. All right, well, we will keep moving. Obviously, if people have questions that they aren't thinking of in this moment, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself and interrupt us. But we'll continue on. And I just wanted to take a second and flag where you can find summer meal sites and meals being served in your community. And so you can either click on the picture on the left, and it'll take you to USDA's website, or you can click the hyperlink here on the right side. And then I also wanted to flag that FRAC has a specific toolkit about the summer nutrition programs for kinship families and grand families, which obviously we interact with clients all the time that are relative caregivers caring for young children in their care. And so if those are families that you work with or you would benefit from finding summer meal sites, you can do that here. Okay, so hopefully you're like, well, isn't there some other program that Tennessee could be using that would complement perfectly SFSP and SSO? And that is what we're here to tell you about today. So sometimes we like to refer to summer feeding as ideally a three-legged stool. And unfortunately in Tennessee right now, we're only taking advantage of 2 of those legs. And so we're going to break down what the summer EBT program is. So summer EBT, same as goodness gracious, SFSP and SSO, is a benefit program aimed at bridging the gap when school meals are not around in the summer. And so summer EBT provides families $120 for their eligible school-age children to purchase groceries in the summer. So it's just like a SNAP EBT card with free money to spend on groceries. Children who participate in free and reduced price meals are eligible for this benefit. And the administrative cost of the program is shared between the state and the federal government. And so that's going to be a really important piece to understand later, is that it's not a cost that just Tennessee is bearing. So the federal government pays for benefits for all of the families, and the state is only responsible for 50% of the administrative cost. So in 2024, summer EBT, we had it in Tennessee. The governor opted to participate. And that's one thing, I probably should have added it as a bullet on the slide before. It's a little bit different in that each state has to opt into operating it. And so first, 2024 was the first opportunity for states to opt in. Tennessee did opt in, and then fast forward and we did not opt in 2025. And so part of this conversation is today, part of the conversation today is to begin to advocate for summer EBT in 2026. So a little bit more about the economic cost and impact in Tennessee. So in 2024, 700,000 Tennessee kids received a summer EBT card. And once again, that was $120 per child on the card. And it's supposed to be $40 for the 3 months or so that kids are not in school in the summer and are not receiving school breakfast or school lunch. The exciting part of this is that in addition to feeding kids, it also brought over $80 million of taxpayer money back to Tennessee, because once again, the summer EBT benefit dollars are all from the federal government. And so you can see here that, as I mentioned, the state shares 50% of the administrative cost to operate the program, which in 2024 was 5.7 million. And according to our calculations for 2025, if the state had opted into the program on time and been able to receive administrative grant money, it would have been less than $5 million, close to like 2.6 million, which is also an important number to remember. So when we're talking about summer EBT, it's good for kids, it's good for families, and it's good for the economy. I see something in the chat, so let me just make sure that. That's a great question. Thank you so much for your question. Someone put in the chat, why would states choose to not opt in? We wish sometimes that we could read the governor's mind. I think unfortunately, Governor Lee has cited the fact that he thinks the program is duplicative and that there's already other programs that exist in the summer to help feed kids, like those that we've mentioned. But as we've mentioned, it's a 3-legged stool, not supposed to be a 2-legged stool. And also we think that there's some politics involved and not wanting to accept federal dollars. So various reasons, and we haven't had a chance to speak directly with the governor's office about what those reasons are. We've mostly seen them in various like media pieces or press releases about why the governor's office cites as the reason that they're not participating. But thanks for that question. Another and follow up, the next reason that I wanted to mention to answer your question is that sometimes you also hear people say, oh, summer EBT was a pandemic era program, and so we don't need it anymore. But that's not the case. So in 2020, obviously when the pandemic hit, the pandemic EBT program was born, not to be confused with summer EBT, though the programs looked somewhat similar. So we had pandemic EBT, which did the same thing and provided meals to students that for long periods of time due to COVID or illness outbreak were not able to go to school. It provided what they would get for free or reduced price meals on a card for their family to provide that benefit. And so from 2020 to 2023, we have pandemic EBT. But forget pandemic EBT because in 2011, summer EBT was first being piloted in a few states. And in 2018, Northeast Tennessee actually joined the pilot. And so when Congress made the program permanent in 2022 and then provided the first year for states to opt in 2024, Tennessee opted in. And pandemic EBT and summer EBT are totally different programs. And so the pandemic, we found out, fortunately it expedited maybe showing the need that we have for summer EBT, but it's important to realize that those are entirely separate. And long before the pandemic, USDA had realized that there was a gap to be filled in the summer that the current USDA summer nutrition programs were not filling, thus the birth of summer EBT. So to finally answer that question, another reason that people cite is that it's a pandemic era program and it's not needed anymore, but we know that that is not true according to this timeline. And I see a couple more things in the chat. Oh, okay, perfect. No questions. Okay. So I also wanted to draw attention to how many states are participating. Unfortunately, Tennessee is in the minority. And maybe that is fortunate because it means that most other states are opting into this program, but 37 states are operating summer EBT this summer. And as you can see, all of these blue states down here are doing summer EBT. And so even our neighbor Alabama is doing it and Tennessee is not. And we often provide the, advocacy reason that, Tennessee participated in 2024 and several of our southern neighbors did not participate then and have since opted in to participate. And so last year, Tennessee was a leader for summer EBT. And this year, unfortunately, we have fallen behind and are failing our children by not opting into the program. So it doesn't stop there. The narrative thickens. So we know that Tennessee did not opt in to administer summer EBT. So what might they have done instead? And I'll leave you on that cliffhanger and pass it to Lily.
All right, next slide. So Tennessee has instead decided to do their own program, the Tennessee Summer Nutrition Initiative. We estimate it only serves around 25,000 kids, again, compared to that 700,000 number that Summer EBT serves. It's just a fraction of the kids and people this is reaching. It's about a $3 million investment into the Summer Food Service Program, so SFSP, which we've already discussed a little bit. It costs the state $120 per child. Since we're paying that full $120 without the federal assistance, whereas with federal assistance, i.e. Summer EBT, it costs the state around $6 per child to serve. It only serves 15 counties. This is identified as under and unserved by SFSP. Eligible children in households enrolled in TANF or SNAP versus the additional qualification of reduced priced or free meals. And so you can see on the left all the different counties that are covered. And all of these are relatively rural. There are some in there that, you know, it doesn't necessarily do anyone justice to say one county deserves it more than the other, but there are plenty of counties that are not receiving TSNI who could really use it. So that's just another thing that we'd like to highlight about Summer EBT. Right, and so we also want to highlight that Summer EBT is popular. So Tennessee families eligible for Summer EBT struggle in the summer months. So this is a poll conducted by Change Research and No Kid Hungry. It shows that many low-income Tennessee families struggle to afford food during the summer, and Summer EBT is a popular option to alleviate summer hunger. And so we can see that the different parameters highlighted are: we sometimes find ourselves without enough money for food during the summer. It is harder to make ends meet during the summer than during the school year. It is harder to make sure my kids have enough nutritious food to eat during the summer than the school year. And to all of those are over 50%, including strongly agree and somewhat agree. So across the partisan spectrum, again, Summer EBT is popular. Tennesseans want Summer EBT to continue. So across the political aisle, all Tennessee adults, 65% say yes, definitely. And if we include the 21% of yes, probably, that's over almost 90% of Tennesseans, 86%. Doing math in my head is hard. But again, this is just a very popular program. It is not and does not need to be a partisan issue. It is purely about making sure kids have the food they need to eat during the summer. So Tennesseans want to fight food insecurity. This is something that is important to us as well. So child hunger should not exist in Tennessee. Who would say no to that or yes to that? Ending childhood hunger in Tennessee should be a shared bipartisan goal. Elected officials in Tennessee should do more to end childhood hunger. Anti-hunger summer programs like Summer EBT are key to winning the fight against child hunger. And then I see something just came up in the chat. Yes, that's a really, really good point. I work in outreach at a health clinic in Monroe County, and I feel like there are not many options for those in need here. Yeah, I think that that's something that is really echoed across the state, especially without Summer EBT. And I don't even think that even with all three programs, there are still children that are going hungry. So even in a perfect world where we have all of this, it's still, we need more. And this is truly, without Summer EBT, we are truly taking a step back and leaving service providers, advocates, the people who are actually needing these programs, just a step back. You know, the next slide. Right, and then Summer EBT nourishes families. So the question, because you had Summer EBT money in your monthly grocery budget, did you select all that apply based on what most people receiving Summer EBT were spending their EBT benefits on? So if you see the bolded items, buy meat, fish, eggs, and other proteins, buy fresh fruits and vegetables. So all of these, very important. This is also being used to combat the narrative that people are just consuming junk on summer EBT, which again, we believe as long as you're receiving food and receiving the calories you need to survive, that is what comes first. But it's also important to acknowledge that summer EBT is allowing families to eat healthier and have more access to those proteins, fresh fruits and vegetables, and all of that good stuff. And then I see another question in the chat. What were the reasons survey participants gave for not wanting to continue summer EBT? So again, the reasoning for not continuing summer EBT doesn't come from the actual participants. It came from our governor. And I don't even know if that was necessarily surveyed. So this particular survey was used to demonstrate how summer EBT is helpful for Tennesseans. And is something that recipients utilize in a variety of different ways to combat that summer hunger. But the actual final decision for summer EBT and who it comes from is Governor Bill Lee. And so, yeah, that's a great question just to have a clarifying note. And go to the next slide. All right, so what are we doing about it? Anna Grace and I and our anti-hunger team, we are working on hashtag I'm for feeding kids. So we are working to get summer EBT back in Tennessee. And these are just some of the strategies we've been using in our campaign to make sure we make that happen. So we are engaging as many decision makers as possible. We have been working on a county mayor sign-on and doing some county mayor visits. We've also been doing some in-district legislative visits. So we've met with city, county mayors. We've met with a bunch of the Tennessee General Assembly members about this. We've done some public engagement. So we have our Summer EBT partner group, which all of you should join if you're interested in Summer EBT. We have Notes for Nourishment, our postcard campaign that Anna Grace will go a little bit more into. We have a few different sign-on letters going around, including that county mayor sign-on letter. We have an individual action letter, and then 2 more sign-on letters in the works for faith leaders and oh, what am I forgetting? Do you remember what I'm forgetting, Anna Grace?
Sorry, it takes me so long to unmute. Did you say healthcare providers?
Healthcare providers. That's our other group that we're working on. We are also trying to get the word out through media. So this can be done through op-eds, coverage of the Gap this summer. Something that anybody as an individual can do is submit a letter to the editor and write about summer EBT or child hunger in Tennessee. So that is a really great tool to make sure that your voice is heard. And we also are happy to help with that in any way, shape, or form, whether it's reviewing what you wrote or getting you some ideas. But this is a really great way to engage your community. And also this media coverage is very easy to show to your elected officials. So it's kind of this circular effect of all of these things, doing all of these things in advocacy kind of strengthen one another and build legitimacy within one another. Another thing that we're doing, of course, social media, hashtag I'm for feeding kids. We have an advocacy toolkit in the works, and we are doing some regular engaging posts. We had our first official post this last week talking more about summer EBT and the comparison between summer EBT and TSNI. And then we have some events coming up. We have a town hall scheduled in Smith County, which we'll get into a little bit more. That's in partnership with one of our Tennessee General Assembly members. And here we are, Summer Hunger Summit. Everyone's invited. So join us in Smith County for a Summer Hunger Summit / Town Hall. It is July 31st at 6 p.m. It's in partnership with Representative Michael Hale. And we're going to be talking about summer EBT, school meals, and likely also a little bit college hunger. Michael Hale is one of the sponsors for the college hunger bill. So we are going to be talking about everything summer hunger, child hunger, all that good stuff. So everyone's invited. Next slide. So another thing that we really want to hammer home is engagement of local community. So these are all groups to engage with. And if you have any connections with this group or already participate in these groups, please let us know. We would love to connect with you. So we are focusing on PTA, school boards, teachers, parents and students, farmers, rural communities, mayors, chambers of commerce, healthcare providers, faith leaders, childcare providers. And so that we know that this is a long list, but not an exhaustive list. So who are the groups that you think should be talking about summer EBT or get engaged in this advocacy? And just feel free to go ahead and comment that in the chat. And again, if any of these groups that we've already listed are hitting home, please let us know. We'd love to talk to you about that. Go to the next slide. All right, and some more questions for the group.
Before we get into this, I think there are maybe just one question in the chat from Asia. Are there any alternatives to the summer EBT that can be presented to elected officials? To put it shortly, Asia, we don't want any alternatives. We want summer EBT. The state has, as we talked about a few slides earlier, they are doing an alternative to summer, or what they believe is an alternative to summer EBT right now. And though it begins to scratch the itch of child hunger, when we're talking about serving 25,000 kids versus 700,000 kids for the same investment from the state, it really pales in comparison to the impact that we could be making on child hunger. And so we're hoping to move away from alternatives and towards just opting into the federal summer EBT program. But good question.
And one other thing that I want to note is this doesn't require legislation. This is just something the states can do. It is an easy lift on states. And that's why when you look at that map earlier, the majority of states are participating in summer EBT. It's kind of a no-brainer. We have kids. Every state has kids that struggle with food insecurity. So if we have this option, let's tap into it. And the nice thing is Congress has already decided that this is a program that should exist in states. The only, I guess, challenge is that states don't have to do it. And that's why we're in the place we're in.
They jump in midway through the summer and use 4 remaining weeks. No, to my knowledge, this is not an option. This is something that states have to opt into preemptively, as there is an administrative lift on the federal side and the state side. So usually the deadline is sometime early January. This year, the deadline was early January for, I think it was an administrative grant, so it would have cost us even less. And then the actual official deadline was Valentine's Day, so February 14th. So it really is something that they have to opt into beforehand, and they had ample time to do so. So no, although we wish that they could opt in after the fact, this is something we are trying to get it back for summer of 2026. So the decision would likely need to be made in January, February of 2026. All right, and then I'll go ahead and move on to these questions. You have had a chance to look at them and read them. So what are ways summer EBT would meet needs of families' community? What resources would be helpful to have to spread awareness of summer EBT? And how can you activate families in your community? And if anyone wants to put their ideas in the chat or come off mute, we are happy to hear it. All right, well, if anything comes up, feel free, come off mute, leave it in the chat, let us know. Otherwise we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Great, so we also have this resource. So this just easily compares and contrasts the differences between summer EBT and Tennessee's version of summer EBT, the Tennessee Summer Nutrition Initiative. So again, this all just goes into a lot of the information we just did, but something that I don't think was mentioned that I think is a really interesting data point, especially if you're having these conversations with elected officials, is of the children who participated in summer EBT in Tennessee in 2024, less than 4% of those people who participated last year are qualifying for Tennessee's new program. So that also just really puts it into perspective of people were using this program, and now this downsized kind of I don't know, sad excuse for summer EBT is really just not reaching the same amount of people. And again, 86% of adults statewide want Tennessee to continue participating in summer EBT. So yeah. I'll pass it back to Anna Grace.
I know we're quickly dwindling down on time, but I just wanted to briefly talk about this. We're still developing this idea a little bit internally, and so we'll be sending an email out in addition to the follow-up with some more instructions here in a week or so when we have all of this buttoned up and put together for you. But in addition to the sign-on letters that we're doing, we're also doing a postcard campaign. And so this is just a brief step-by-step instruction if you need some instruction for writing a postcard. Probably most of you have, but just in case you haven't. But we've got a link to find your Tennessee legislators. And then our idea is that this is just yet another way that we are hoping to reach Governor Lee. We send action letters all the time to his office and have one being distributed right now that we'll send in the follow-up that would land in his inbox. But we're hoping that this can land in a physical mailbox, and with handwritten notes, we'd always like to think that they go further. But we're going to be coming up with an electronic version to do this in the future, so that the physical writing of the postcard doesn't become a barrier. But all that is to say, here are a couple of examples of some of the postcards that came out of our Northeast Tennessee Regional Anti-Hunger Conference. As you can see, they're really plain and simple, and we're actually going next week to hand deliver these to Governor Lee's office. So just yet another strategy to hopefully reach Governor Lee with some handwritten and decorated notes. Asia, I see you have a question.
Yeah, and thank you for self-correcting my on my chat. I was trying to type quickly, so regarding the summer EBT, and correct me if I'm not correct. That's money that will go on your SNAP that you currently have, correct?
So
Yeah.
for summer EBT money, no. What gets confusing is that TSNI, the Tennessee Summer Nutrition Initiative, that the state has decided to do instead, that $120 worth of benefits does go onto a SNAP or TANF EBT card. But through the federal program, it's a separate card.
Okay. So, because I know in the previous slides, the question was, how some asking for how we can get families, kind of involved in it, and that may be it. Some of that confusion, and then also, I know with the clients that I'm working with, they are being denied SNAP right and left, and then once they're denied, even if that denial was not correct, they have to wait so long before they can apply again. So you have that piece there. Like, if I'm not even getting SNAP, then why should I da 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 da? So
yeah, we have thought about that in the counties that are participating in TSNI, the 15 that Governor Lee has selected. There may be families that would be otherwise eligible, like income level, but aren't participating in SNAP or TANF for a variety of reasons, and then therefore would not receive those $120 because they did not already have an EBT card. So I think that's totally fair and a good point that you're bringing up. But just to quickly wrap things up, I know we've got 4 minutes left. A couple of ways to stay engaged. So obviously we're having this webinar here, and we also have a monthly working group that convenes to talk about summer EBT. And so if you are at all interested in joining, we would love to have you. I think the more perspectives that we have being a part of our conversation and talking to your friends and neighbors about this, the better. So you can scan the QR code and we'll be sure to send out the link and the follow-up. Additionally, a few other things that you could take action on today. You can share your story. You can send a letter to your state legislators and to Governor Lee and Commissioner Carter, and then write a postcard or sign up for the Summer EBT partner group. Once again, all of these actions will be sent out momentarily. So now with our whopping 3 minutes remaining, I just want to make sure that there aren't any other questions that we haven't addressed. And if no questions, I just wanted to leave us with this. But as you might be able to tell by us linking it as one of the action opportunities, TJC is collecting lots of stories from families across Tennessee that have previously received summer EBT and are without those benefits this summer. And so I just wanted to share one briefly to kind of close out the meeting. I think sometimes, we can get really stuck in the policy weeds of these programs, but it's important to remember the families that they're directly impacting. And so this mom from Memphis shared with us that summer EBT was a lifesaver for me and my family. With the kids out of school, I was confident that we didn't have to worry about food security. Now I'm finding myself worrying what and how I'm going to feed my sons. So if that's not a kick in the rear for reasons that we need summer EBT, I'm not sure what will be. So thanks so much for joining us today. We will continue to be a resource and continue to advocate for summer EBT, and we hope you all will join us. So thanks. Okay, I will stop the recording and we will wrap it up. Thanks, everyone.